Hey guys, hello and welcome to Naveed for Speed. In today's video, I'm going to be driving the Toyota GR86. Why am I driving the Toyota GR86? Well, because this car is the successor to the GT86, a car which I didn't get to drive, but I was always interested in. And the reason why is at the time I owned a E90 BMW 3 Series and I thought the performance figures were quite similar. So I was quite interested to see how the GT86 would perform. I didn't actually get to drive it, but here we have the updated version, the GR86. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about why this car is different to the GT86 and how this car actually feels to drive. From looking at the exterior of the car, we can see that there are some changes made to the way that the car looks, the styling of the car compared to the GT86, particularly from the front. It looks a bit more aggressive. It's supposed to be updated for modern styling, and I think it does look a bit more sharp and a bit more crisp at the front. And there's also some changes at the back, but arguably the changes that have been made to this car over the GT86, I think weren't necessary. The GT86 is a beautiful looking car, but some would argue this car looks even better. So I'm not quite sure. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Does this car look better than the GT86? Other changes from the GT86 compared to this car is that this car now sits on Michelin Pilot Sport 4 tires now, so it's supposed to be a lot more grippy and basically handle better. The old GT86 was supposedly very tail happy because it had those thin Toyota Prius wheels and tires on it, whereas now we've got these sticky tires. So I'm gonna see how that feels to drive as I take it out on the road somewhere over there. The reason why I actually really wanted to drive the GR86 is because this car is basically unavailable now. Back in 2021, when this car was launched, it sold out its UK allocation in just 90 minutes, just an hour and a half, and it was all gone. And Toyota aren't going to be making any more of these because starting from 2025 when European safety laws come in place, the car will Toyota won't produce it anymore, simply because of a camera that will be mandatory to be mounted here in the windscreen. Toyota say that in order to do that, they would have to raise the roof. They'd have to raise the roof, and they'd have to redesign the front windscreen, and it's just too much work. It'll change the driving dynamics of the car, and it'll mean that it's not really a GR86 anymore. So this car will be discontinued. So I might never get a chance to drive this car after this. So I thought I'll drive it, I'll see how it feels, and hopefully it lives up to its expectations. Let me show you the inside. So the interior is mostly unchanged from the GT86. It still looks sporty, it still looks somewhat basic. You get the same materials inside. The seats, you still get those sports bucket seats, but the main changes are here in the center console. You get this 8-inch infotainment touchscreen and the controls for the climate controls, these sort of swivel knobs. They actually look so good, and when it's lit up, they've got these sort of red numbers on them. It's really quite cool. And of course the top here, this ventilation for the air conditioning has been changed. It's a lot more cleaner look, I suppose, a lot smoother at the top rather than it coming out up here. In front of you sits this really cool sporty steering wheel. It's actually rather thin, so easy to grip onto. Leather steering wheel with contrasting stitching, Toyota logo in the middle, and it's obviously a manual. You can get this car in automatic, but the one to go for, I've been told, is manual. Now this car cost £30,000 when new, but of course since you can't buy one anymore, you would have to buy this car in the used market. And of course this car is actually a very interesting prospect because it's supposedly going to be a future classic. It's only on sale for 2 years and there's no more available, compared to the GT86, which was on sale for 9 years. So there's a very short window in which you can buy this car, and all the cars that have been sold, they were sold at £30,000, and now a used car will set you back minimum £32,000 from what I've seen on Auto Trader. And of course, they're mostly manuals as well. The automatics are really hard to find. So if you are looking to buy a GT86, I would suggest you look at the used market, and I would suggest you get one fast, because this is a very popular and it's going to be a rare car. Right, so here we go in the Toyota GR86. Toyota's sporty little, essentially a roadster, but it's not. It's a 2+2. Basically, it's got 2 seats in the front, 2 seats in the back, but you're gonna struggle to fit adults in there. In fact, you're gonna struggle to fit anybody in there. What do we have here? We've got a 2.4 litre naturally aspirated 4-cylinder engine, which produces 231 brake horsepower, 250 newton meters of torque. Now that figure, those power figures, I suppose, the horsepower and the torque is up from the GT86, and that's because the GT86 had a 2-litre Boxster engine, whereas this has a 2.4-litre Boxster engine. Still naturally aspirated though, but Toyota have employed their GR, their Gazoo Racing division, to have a little play with this car. And they've increased the capacity of that engine, and that also means that now you can find torque much lower in the rev range, around 3,700, I think it is, RPM. You can find max torque rather than at 6,400, and so you don't have to work the engine as hard in order to get all that torque. And this is just so fun. It feels instant. The acceleration is instant when you put your foot on that pedal, and the gear changes are just so clean. There's a really short throw in this gearbox, so that it means that it has that racy appeal, and it's just raring to go, this car. Steering is just so beautiful, and I suppose that the handling of this car is good for a couple of reasons. Firstly, because it sits on those Pilot Sport 4 tyres, which are so good, so grippy. Oh, I've got a Fiat Abarth, the new Abarth, behind me, and it's not keeping up. I mean, I'm not driving stupidly, but it's just the way that this accelerates, it's just so good. And secondly, is because this car has weight saving over the GT86. It's got an aluminium roof, an aluminium bonnet, and an aluminium front wings, so it saves a lot of weight there as well. But ultimately, this car is the perfect recipe. A front-engined, naturally aspirated car that sends all the power to the rear wheels, and it's just so beautifully balanced. It's so good. I drove the Supra, the Toyota Supra, on this road actually, not too long ago, and it felt well balanced, but this is just, it's smaller, it's lighter, it's got less power, but it just brings all that essence down to something so simple, and that's what makes this car so good. Like I mentioned, it cost £30,000, and it was snapped up really quickly for obvious reason, because it's a last of its kind. But the only way that you're going to get similar performance with this car is, well, let's say, for example, if we compare it to the Mazda MX-5, that's cheaper, but it's not as powerful and not as practical. But then if we look higher up, we look at cars like the BMW 2 Series, the Audi TT, for example, more expensive, more powerful, more practical, but then they're just in a market of their own, essentially, aren't they? This car sits slightly in the middle. It's basically more closer to the Mazda MX-5 than anything else, but it beats the Mazda MX-5 every day of the week. And I suppose because, even though it's more expensive, because it's probably not gonna last long, it's been popular and sold out, and Toyota are still delivering those cars now. in 2023. And for those people who are lucky enough to have bought one, this is what they can look forward to. And if you're watching this and you're waiting for a GR86, then you're in for a treat. This car is just so fun. The interior does feel a little bit cramped, especially if you're in the back, but even in the front. But I've got a really good driving position, to be honest. I'm sit really low down near the road, and the whole car is low down near the road. You've got the bonnet is really low. You get great visibility out of the front. Out of the back, I'm actually quite surprised. I thought the visibility wouldn't be as good, but the visibility out the back is good as well. And overall, I think as a driver's car for a weekend drive, for example, a coastal road, a country road, a mountain road, this car is just perfect. It's just so light and agile. It weighs under 1300 kg. So again, it brings everything down to simplicity. It doesn't need to have too much power because it doesn't weigh a lot. And it's just all about how it feels for the drivers. There's a lot of strengthening in the chassis, in the suspension, in the steering column, so it feels more rigid as well. The car feels a bit more confident on the road and in those turns. And I just think it's just such a beautiful thing. For my first experience driving this thing, I just think they put together in such a cool package. The closest I ever got to feeling like this, I suppose, was with the Toyota Supra, and now I've got this as another favorite, to be honest. And I think there's going to come a day where we don't have cars like this anymore, especially naturally aspirated. The engine doesn't sound the best, but you know what? It's satisfying actually. The sound, that sort of bellow is actually satisfying. But yeah, there's gonna come a time where we don't have engines like this. We don't have naturally aspirated engines. Everything's already been turbocharged anyway, but there'll be a time where things will be hybrid and they'll be electric. And when that time comes, it's cars like these that I certainly will remember. And I think Toyota as a brand can execute a car like this so well. If you know the Toyota brand, you know reliability. So it's just all around. I can see why people have bought it. I can see why it was snapped up so quickly. And if I had the money, if I had the means to, I would definitely buy this car without a shadow of a doubt. I know that's a very bold thing to say, considering there's so many other cars out there, especially in the sort of similar price range. But the satisfaction and the thrill that this car offers, oh, when it changes gears, it's just violent. It's like it hits you in the back. Oh, it's beautiful. It is beautiful. I've been waiting pretty much all day to drive this car here at the SMMT regional test day, and it has been so worth it. It's been a popular car here today. In fact, I've got somebody waiting to drive it now when I give the car back, the lucky bugger. But yeah, I'm glad to have driven it, and I don't think I would have otherwise got to drive it. Toyota, you've done such a good job with this car. Amazing. The Toyota GR86 is a breath of fresh air. I only wish it could have stuck around for a little bit longer.